Hello all. So we are continuing our conversation today in chapter 9. This is part 3. And of course, we're talking about sport and physical activity psychology, but even more so about personality and mental strategies. Here we go. So let's talk about personality and how it connects to sport performance. According to sport psychologist Robert Veely, personality is the unique blend of psychological characteristics and behavioral tendencies that make individuals different and similar to each other. This definition highlights that while we all have distinct traits, we also share patterns of behaviors that can influence how we perform, especially in sport. While personality profiles, performance trends, and psychological theories can offer helpful insights, they never tell the full story of an athlete. Every person brings their own motivation, strengths, challenges, and background to the sport experience. That's why personalized coaching is more effective than a one-size-fits-all model. The best results come when we adapt our strategies to the person and not just the player. As educators, coaches, or mentors, our goal should be to listen carefully and observe behaviors and emotions and build trust and rapport, as well as tailor our feedback and guidance and respect individual goals and communication styles. Because when athletes feel seen, heard, and understood, they're more likely to stay engaged, grow, and succeed both in sport and in life. In high performance environments, whether in sport, work, or life, challenges are inevitable. What separates those who succeed from those who struggle often comes down to mental toughness. One key component of this is psychological hardiness. So what is that? Hardiness is a personality trait linked to the ability to function at an optimal level, especially under stress. It's associated with persistence and resiliency and the capacity to bounce back from adversity. Psychologist Suzanne Kobasa studied individuals who stayed healthy and high functioning during extreme stress, and she identified 3 traits that made them different, known as the 3 C's of hardiness. So the first of those Kobasa's 3 C's is commitment. Committed individuals are deeply engaged with their goals, their relationships, and responsibilities, and instead of withdrawing in difficult times, they stay involved and find purpose in what they do. In sport, a committed athlete shows up and pushes through fatigue and believes in the process. The second C is control. Those in high control believe they have influence over their outcomes, even in difficult situations. They focus on what they can manage rather than feeling helpless. In sport, athletes with control focus on preparation and mindset and effort and not just the scoreboard. Challenge is the third. And hardy individuals view stressors not as threats but as challenges to be overcome. They see change as an opportunity for growth and development. In sport, this mindset helps athletes embrace tough opponents, mistakes, or setbacks as learning experience. And so hardiness can play a major role in athletes' success. It promotes greater resilience under pressure, increased mental focus and motivation, and long-term persistence in the face of adversity. It's not just about surviving stress, it's about thriving through it. So one trait that often separates good athletes from great ones is mental toughness. It's the ability to stay focused, confident, and resilient, especially under pressure. It's not just about physical skill, it's about what's happening between the ears. Clough and colleagues developed the 4 C's model. So researchers Clough and colleagues expanded on Kobasa's original 3 C's of psychological hardiness, the commitment, control, and challenge, and added a 4th component, confidence. So the 4 C's of mental toughness are commitment, control, challenge, and confidence. Having strong self-belief, even under pressure or after setbacks. Together, these traits form a foundation for consistent high-level performance. Now, Jones and colleagues developed the cognitive advantage, and according to Jones and colleagues, their mental tough athletes have what they call a cognitive advantage. They're more consistent, better at staying determined, and able to maintain focus, commitment, and control even in high stakes situations. This mental edge allows elite performers to execute at their best, not just when everything's going right, but especially when things get tough. And the elite athlete mindset. It takes mental toughness, and it looks like an unshakable belief in their ability, a deep commitment to both short and long-term goals, inner arrogance, if you will, not in a negative way, but as a quiet, personal certainty that they can and will succeed, and an intense focus that blocks out distractions and pressure. This mindset isn't just natural, it's developed through experience, training, and intentional mental preparation. When it comes to athletic performance, especially in competition, an athlete's mental and emotional state can have a huge impact. Two important concepts we need to understand are anxiety and arousal. Let's take a closer look at what they mean and how they affect performance. Anxiety is a negative emotional state. It's characterized by feelings of nervousness, worry, and apprehension. These feelings are usually accompanied by increased activation or arousal in the body. For example, an athlete may experience a racing heart and sweaty palms, shaky hands, and difficulty focusing. Anxiety is not always visible, but it can interfere with concentration, decision making, and performance, especially if it's not managed well. Now, arousal, on the other hand, is a broader concept. It refers to the blend of physiological and psychological activity in a person. It includes your level of motivation, alertness, sense of excitement or energy at a particular moment. Arousal is not inherently good or bad. In fact, the right amount of arousal can enhance performance, but if it's too high or too low, it can become a problem. Think of arousal like a dial. Too low and you might feel sluggish and bored or unfocused. Where too high, you might feel overwhelmed, tense, or panicked. So understanding the difference between anxiety and arousal helps athletes and coaches recognize what's happening internally and adjust accordingly. And we'll explore how to manage these states through techniques like relaxation, breathing, visualization, and self-talk, all aimed at helping athletes find their optimal zone for performance. To perform at your best, it's not just about physical preparation, it's also about understanding how your mind and body respond to pressure. So let's talk a little bit more about anxiety and how finding the right level of arousal can make or break performance. We talked about anxiety a moment ago. There are differences. There's a trait versus state anxiety. Anxiety isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. It comes in the two forms. Trait anxiety is a part of your personality. People with high trait anxiety are more likely to feel nervous or worried across a wide range of situations, not just in sport. It's a tendency to perceive situations as threatening, even if they aren't. State anxiety, on the other hand, is a temporary emotional response to a specific situation, like the moments before a big game or a high-stakes performance. It can cause physical symptoms like increased heart rate, muscle tension, sweaty palms, and racing thoughts. Understanding the difference helps athletes manage their reactions. Some may need long-term strategies, while others need tools for in-the-moment control. And if we connect all of this to arousal, as we said earlier, arousal refers to your mental and physical activation, so ranging from sleepiness to intense excitement. There is an optimal level of arousal that allows for peak performance. If it's too low, they may feel sluggish and bored and unfocused. Whereas if it's too high, then anxiety and tension may take over. So if it's just right, they're alert, energized, and composed, athletes can reach their zone of optimal functioning. There is a sweet spot that varies for every individual and can depend on the type of sport as well. Precision sports like golf or archery may require lower arousal, where high intensity sports like football or sprinting often benefit from higher arousal. So knowing whether your anxiety is part of your personality or just a situational response, and learning to find your personal optimal arousal level are powerful steps toward building mental toughness and consistency in performance. So let's talk about some strategies to reduce anxiety and arousal. Using physical activity to release stress and anxiety, you can engage in exercises that help dissipate tension, something like yoga. You also want to develop pre-competition routines, establishing those consistent habits to create a sense of control and calm. And you want to simulate games and practice, so mimic competitive conditions to build familiarity and reduce uncertainty. We also want to tailor preparation to the individual athlete, so customize strategies based on each athlete's needs and preferences, and build confidence with high but realistic expectations. You want to encourage belief in their abilities while maintaining achievable goals, and help athletes keep errors in perspective. Teach them that mistakes are part of the learning and not catastrophic. You want to keep athletes focused on the present. Oftentimes they consider their past mistakes, so you want to encourage them to concentrate on their current performance and not worry about what's been before. You promote positive self-talk, so foster, encouraging inner dialogue to counter those negative thoughts. I feel like we need a lot of this information in our daily lives, not just in sport. We all have these inner voices that are knocking us down, or we have brothers or sisters that are knocking us down, or friends. And we really need to make sure that we limit that if we can. But we also need to encourage our own inner dialogue and find that worthiness. And incorporate relaxation training as necessary. So use techniques like deep breathing and meditation or progressive muscle relaxation to help you to relax. Let's talk about goal setting. There are different types of goals. First of those is an outcome goal. And this is where the focus is on the end result or the final outcome, winning the race or winning the game, getting first place. And they often involve comparison to others. Then there is interpersonal comparison or personal achievement. And this is where goals are based on comparing your performance directly to others. You're beating a competitor. And then you've got the performance goals. And these are more personal standards and improving your own previous performances, getting your own PR or running a faster time than before. And then personal achievement. Goals that emphasize self-improvement and reaching personal milestones and regardless of others' performance. And then there's process goals. These concentrate on the actions and strategies during performance, such as maintaining good form and consistent breathing. We know that those process goals affect our outcome goals. And technique. So being specific and focusing on improving our technical skills and our mechanics within the sport, such as perfecting a golf swing or swimming stroke. Benefits of goal setting. It helps to provide direction and focus. It helps athletes know what to aim for and organize, and enhances motivation. Clear goals encourage sustained effort and persistence, and it helps improve performance. So setting specific targets leads to measurable improvements. It increases our self-confidence by helping us to achieve those goals. It builds belief in our abilities and facilitates feedback and evaluation. Goals offer us a way to track progress and adjust strategies, and helps us in managing anxiety. By having goals, we can reduce uncertainty and increase control over performance. So it helps us in focusing our attention and mobilizing our effort and fostering that persistence and promoting development of new learning strategies. Now, the SMART goals framework, as you're setting goals, goals should be specific. They should be SMART. And so S stands for specifics. That's clear and well-defined. You want to improve your 100-meter sprint time by 0.5 of a second. They should be measurable. They should be quantifiable to track progress. And so that would be related to the timing or scores. They should be achievable, so they're realistic and attainable, given the resources and your abilities. And relevant. They're meaningful and aligned with your overall objectives. And they are time bound. So they're set within a deadline. By September 1st, I want to have lost 4 pounds. That is something that it is specific, it is measurable, it is achievable, and it's relevant. And I've set a deadline with a time frame for accomplishment with it. There are principles of goal setting that we need to be mindful of. First, write your goals down. Putting them in writing increases your commitment and clarity. And put them on the mirror or wherever so that they are visible. You want to incorporate different types of goals using outcome, performance, process, and technique goals for a balanced approach. And set short and long-term goals. Combine your immediate targets with future aspirations for motivation and direction. They should build on one another. And establish individual goals within a group context. So, align your personal goals with your team objectives to promote cohesion. Determine your goals for practice and competition. Set specific aims for both training sessions and actual performance. And ensure goals are internalized. Make sure athletes truly believe in and commit to their goals. And regularly evaluate progress. So monitor and adjust goals based on ongoing performance and feedback. And provide for individual differences. Customize goals to fit each athlete's abilities, needs, and circumstances. We talked about this earlier, self-talk. It is so important. And I feel like we all have a tendency to talk down to ourselves. There are different approaches that you can take. A cognitive approach is where self-talk reflects the relationship between an individual's thoughts, feelings, behaviors, or performance. Now, you can have either positive or a negative impact on an athlete's mindset and performance. And so with that, you have to understand your influence is important. And you may be saying positive things to them, but they may be taking things negatively. Self-talk occurs whenever an individual thinks, whether making statements internally or externally, and that's Williams and Leffingwell. There are different types of self-talk. There is task-relevant statements, which remind ourselves about technique, strategies, or specific cues needed for performance, like keep your elbow up, stay focused on the ball. And then there are positive statements that encourage effort, persistence, and confidence. I can do this. Keep pushing. You got this. And then mood words or phrases used to increase intensity or arousal when needed, such as fire up, let's go, get pumped, let's go. So oftentimes we have to modify our self-talk and put that into application. First thing we need to do is identify negative self-talk. Helping athletes become aware of unhelpful or harmful internal statements that undermine their confidence or focus. And we want to replace that negative with positive. We want to teach athletes to consciously substitute negative or distracting thoughts with positive, task-relevant, or motivational statements and use cue words or phrases. So developing simple, memorable, self-talk cues that athletes can repeat during practice or competition to maintain focus and confidence. Now, some modification techniques, one of those is thought stopping. And so consciously interrupting negative or unproductive thoughts, saying stop or snapping a rubber band, whatever you have to do to get those thoughts to stop. And then replacing those negative thoughts with positive thoughts, substituting with constructive and encouraging ones, and countering, challenging the validity of negative thoughts by questioning and disproving them. You know, oftentimes it is important to question yourself as to whether that was the right action or the right thought, and you have to think about that. and reframe. So change the interpretation of a situation to see it in a more positive or helpful light. I'm learning, and so I'm going to make mistakes. It's really important to practice regularly to encourage consistent use of positive self-talk with your training and to build automatic and helpful mental habits. And you want to tailor that to the individual. So customize self-talk strategies to fit each athlete's personality, sport, and performance situation, and combine it with other techniques. Integrate self-talk with relaxation, visualization, and goal setting for greater mental skills development. And monitor and adjust. Regularly evaluate the effectiveness of self-talk and make changes as needed based on athlete feedback and performance outcomes. And enhance skill acquisition. So use self-talk to remind and reinforce proper techniques and strategies during learning. Try to focus their attention, help them concentrate on relevant cues, and block out the distractions. Modify the activation. So increase or decrease physiological and psychological arousal levels as needed. Oftentimes they may need to calm down or energize, whichever it may be. And then promote self-confidence. So build belief in their abilities through positive and motivating self-statements. Mental imagery, as defined by Veely and Greenleaf, is the process of using all the senses to recreate or create an experience in the mind. Now, Anderson sees it as the individual sees the image or feels the movements and or environment and hears the sounds related to the movement. Some key characteristics of mental imagery is it is a systematic and consciously controlled process. The person actively creates, manipulates, and structures mental images. Combining imagery with physical practice can enhance skill acquisition and improve overall performance. There are different types of mental imagery. There's external imagery as well as internal imagery. External imagery is where the athlete visualizes themselves from an outside perspective, like watching a video or movie of their performance. Now, having said that, you just need to know that many athletes don't like to hear how they sound, or they're going to be really critical of how they look. And so you have to kind of gauge that with your athlete. And the more video that they watch, the less, I won't say the less critical, but they get used to, you want them to look at specific factors like where was your foot placement and things along that line. So give them cues on what to look for. Internal imagery is when an athlete imagines the performance from their own first-person perspective, as if seeing it through their own eyes and feeling the movements from within their body. There are several key features of mental imagery that influence how well it works. Let's break them down. Multiple perspectives. Mental imagery can be experienced from two different viewpoints. An internal perspective where we're seeing and feeling the action from our own eyes as if we're doing it in real time. And then the external perspective where we're imagining ourselves from the outside, like watching a video or seeing yourself on stage or on the field. Both perspectives can be helpful, and athletes often switch depending on their goals. Vividness. This refers to how clear, detailed, and lifelike the imagery feels. The more vivid the image, the more effective the mental rehearsal. Strong mental imagery should include sharp visuals and realistic colors and movement, and specific details like sounds and timing, and physical sensations like the sound of a tennis ball off the sweet spot in the racket. And it utilizes multiple senses, so great mental imagery goes beyond just seeing the action and includes the auditory, hearing the crowd or the coach's voice, the tactical, feeling the texture of a ball or surface, the kinesthetic, which is sensing the body position and movement, and olfactory, even smells like grass or chalk, and emotional, capturing the feelings of excitement, calmness, or confidence. The more senses you engage, the more powerful and realistic the mental image becomes. And the incorporation of emotions. Emotions are a key driver of motivation and performance. And so effective imagery includes emotional responses like the thrill of scoring a goal, the calm focus before a serve, and the determination during a comeback by emotionally connecting to the imagery. This athletes boost their confidence and motivation. And then the controllability. This is the ability to voluntarily change, adjust, or direct the images in your mind. Skilled imagers can shift from a mistake to a corrected performance. Imagine different outcomes. Rewind, pause, or replay situations. Controllability helps athletes stay mentally agile and better prepare for challenges. Athletes and performers use mental imagery in developing sports skills. Mental imagery helps athletes enhance their skills through mental practice, whether it's visualizing a perfect golf swing or a flawless gymnastics routine. Mental rehearsal activates the same brain regions used during physical practice. They use it to help correct errors. They can identify mistakes and mentally correct them. This allows for cognitive adjustments in technique without physical strain. And they perfect for learning from errors and reinforcing correct movement patterns. They also use them for rehearsing strategies. They're great for practicing game plans and plays and scenarios. Athletes mentally rehearse what they'll do in specific situations like penalty kicks, transitions, or timeouts, so they're more confident and prepared during pressure. And they create a focused mindset. Imagery helps establish the right mental state for peak performance. Athletes use it to build motivation to stay calm or mentally prepared for high-stress competition environments. And they also develop pre-performance routines. They're used to mentally build and reinforce those pre-game routines like breathing exercises, mantras, or visualization rituals that help athletes lock in before competing. And they use them for learning and enhancing mental skills. Imagery is a key strategy for improving concentration, confidence, and controlling anxiety. Visualizing success, calmness, or focus can shape emotional or psychological readiness. And they facilitate injury recovery. Mental imagery plays a role in rehabilitation. Injured athletes often visualize movements and return to play scenarios, which can ease the mental stress of recovery and help maintain skill memory. Here are a few intervention strategies for managing anxiety and arousal. The first of those is relaxation techniques. Methods such as deep breathing, breathing in through our nose and out through our mouth, as one that's really important. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that sitting in traffic. It helps to slow your breathing down, and that all in itself can be a game changer. Progressive muscle relaxation, and this is where you're tensing the muscles and then you're relaxing. And you go through that multiple times in order to get that relaxation. And then meditation to reduce tension and control your arousal levels. Oftentimes it may include music, cognitive strategies such as restructuring. This is where we're changing that negative or unhelpful thought pattern to more positive or constructive ones. And the thought stopping that we talked about earlier, where we're interrupting this broadcast and stopping negative thoughts consciously. And self-talk, using positive and task-focused internal dialogue to enhance focus and confidence. And hypnosis and self-hypnosis, it's using guided or self-induced trance-like states to improve concentration and reduce anxiety. Goal setting, establishing clear, measurable, and motivating targets, and then mental imagery. So visualizing successful performance and strategies to enhance our skill and confidence. Here are a few talking points, and we as professionals need to be aware of privilege and oppression and recognize how social inequalities and systematic barriers can affect participants' motivation and access to physical activity and physical education and sport. We also want to make sure that we're using culturally relevant strategies, so tailoring approaches to fit cultural backgrounds, and it can help improve engagement and participation across all ages. and individualized psychological skills training. So training should respect and incorporate each person's unique cultural identity and experiences. And oftentimes it's about asking them and being open to incorporate some of their cultural practices into your practice. And promoting diversity in the profession. So recruiting and training individuals from underrepresented populations as sports psychologists helps create more inclusive, culturally sensitive support systems. If we talk about the current trends, some of the advances in exercise initiation and adherence, more effective and diverse strategies will be developed to help individuals start and maintain regular physical activity, providing professionals with better tools to support long-term engagement, and utilizing technology-driven self-regulation. The emerging technologies will enhance the ability to self-manage anxiety and arousal, potentially boosting athletic performance through real-time feedback and biofeedback, wearable devices, and even AI-driven interventions. And so with this, other current trends are refining behavior change strategies. Future approaches will better account for cultural backgrounds and individual differences, making interventions more personalized and effective, while also the ongoing of the development of mobile apps and digital tools to support physical activity by providing motivation and tracking and personalized feedback, and new effective strategies to be introduced in physical education when they're identified to actively engage motivated students and increase their likelihood of participating in physical activity both during and beyond the school hours. And that is all that I have for you today. This concludes chapter 9. I hope that you're able to take some of these strategies with you and utilize them in your own practice and in your own life. Have a great day.